Shalom, shalom, Zion. Shalom. Shalom to the whole Bayif, the whole house of Yasharal, all 12 tribes worldwide, to the older brother, Yahudah, to the younger brother, Ephraim, to the former stranger, the former Ger, the former Goyim or Goy or Gentile, who is no longer a Ger, who is no longer a stranger, a Goy, Goyim, a Gentile, but having been engrafted into Yasharal through the branch, through Hanetzah and Hanatzah, Yahushua HaMashiach, you are no longer a stranger, you're no longer a Ger, you're no longer a Goy, a Goyim, you're no longer a nation, but you are indeed now a fellow citizen. You are indeed now a fellow Yasharalite, and you are indeed privy now to the same covenants, the same promise, and the same inheritance that was made with Yasharal and with Yasharal alone. With no other people were these covenants made, were these everlasting covenants made. It was made with one people, with Yasharal, and whereby now you being engrafted into Yasharal and being no different than the native born, you too are privy to the same covenants and the same promise and the same inheritance that was given to Yasharal and to Yasharal alone. Shalom, shalom to you, the whole Bayif of Yasharal, worldwide on this Yom, worldwide on this Yom. Mishpaka, my Mishpaka, I want to talk to you about something today. It's probably a subject that's taboo in Christian circles, but I'm not a Christian, and this subject is not taboo to me. We must be bold in addressing these types of questions. We must be bold in addressing misbehaviors and misconceptions and taboos. And we must be bold in these things because Yasharal is a set-apart people, and anything not set apart has to be addressed. Any uncleanness has to be addressed, and any wickedness has to be put out from among us. It must be put out from among us. So I'm not afraid to address these types of questions and these types of issues because they must be addressed. They must be addressed because Yasharal must be a set-apart people. Nevertheless, that question is, can a man spill his seed? Can a man spill his seed? This has become very prevalent within all segments of society. It is very prevalent even within Yasharal, but even more so as this world grows more and more wicked. This is something that has become prevalent in our society, so much so that it's taught in the public food system. It's taught in public education to children that it's okay to spill your seed, that it's okay to masturbate, that that doesn't equate sex. And so by doing so, you're doing nothing wrong. They indeed teach that it is a natural bodily function, that it's natural to masturbate. What does Yah think about this? What does Yah think about this, and what does Yah have to say about this subject? What does Yah have to say about it? Before we address that, in this video, it's going to be a relatively short video. In fact, this video will be a precursor to the next video that Yah willing makes through me. And so this video will serve as a foundation and a precursor for the next video that Yah willing will do through me. So this video won't be very long, but the foundation needs to be laid, and in laying the foundation, this question needs to be answered. This question needs to be answered. But before delving into this question, let me say this. Let me say this. Many of you hear the introduction that Yah does through me when he talks about welcoming Yahudah, giving Yahudah shalom, the older brother, and Ephraim, the younger brother, shalom, and welcoming the stranger into the house of Yasharal, and welcoming the stranger into the house of Yasharal. Let me say this, Zion. Many of you are coming now into the knowledge of who you are. This is an unprecedented season, and many of you are coming now into the knowledge of who you are. You're coming into this knowledge, but many of you are using this knowledge as nothing more than a black nationalist pride movement, as nothing more than a black nationalist pride movement. Now, hear me, I understand you. I understand you. The stranger amongst us has risen higher and higher, and we have sunk lower and lower. Many in Zion suffer from low self-esteem because for most of our lives we have been looked at as being less than. We have been looked at as being subhuman. We have been looked at as the lowest of the low on this earth. And so I get it. I get it. And this in turn has generated a generation of folk within Zion with low self-esteem. And so when you come into the knowledge of who you are, the first thing that results from that usually is pride, anger, and hate. It's pride, anger, and hate. And as I look across the landscape of Zion, I see a lot of folk using this knowledge as nothing more than a black pride nationalist movement, as nothing more than a black pride nationalist movement, no different than the Afro movement of the early to mid 70s, of the black pride movement of the early 70s and mid 70s. Some are using it no different than the black pride movement. No different than the black pride movement. But is that what Yah desires? Is that what Yah desires? I submit to you, Zion, that now that many of you are coming into the knowledge of who you are, now you know who you are. If you're like me, Yah revealed this to me personally. He personally told me, spoke to me who I am. I had initially heard it via a video. I asked him if it were true. In the wee hours of the morning, he spoke to me and confirmed to me that it is true. So I know who I am. I know who I am. I know that I am a son, a descendant of Abraham and Ishaq and Jacob. Many of you are coming into this knowledge. But now that you have come into this knowledge, now what? Now what? What's the next step? Are we to use it as just a black pride movement type of thing? Are we to use this no differently than the black pride movement of the 70s and early 70s? Is this all to coming into the knowledge of who we are? Is this it? Is this it? Is it just to fuel the pride in us? Is it just to cover up our low self-esteem because we've sunk lower and lower and a stranger amongst us has risen higher and higher? Is it just a mechanism, a means of covering our low self-esteem? Or is there more? Or is there more? I submit to you, Zion, that there is more. And I submit to you, Zion, that now that you know who you are, now you need to understand what your purpose is. What your purpose is. What the purpose of Yasharal is. And that purpose has never changed. That purpose from the very beginning until now has not changed. You see, Yah chose a people, a special people, a set-apart people, his own special possession, to draw us out of Egypt, to draw us out of Mitzrayim into the wilderness, to draw us to himself and set apart a special people unto himself. He then proceeded to give this people his very instructions spoken from his very mouth, called his Tahurah. And he taught us his Tahurah. He taught our ancestors through Masha his set-apart instructions, his set-apart Tahurah. But his intent then and his intent now is that now that he has set us apart, now that he has taught us his righteous Tahurah, now we are to be a nation of Kohen. We are to be a royal nation. We are to be a set-apart nation. We are to be a nation of Kohen, of priests, so that through us, Yahuwah will reconcile the rest of the nations back to himself. We are supposed to be lights to the nations. We are supposed to be examples and set apartness to the nations. We are to go to them and teach them Torah, as mentioned in Matif Yahu, the 28th chapter. Go to them and teach them all things that I have taught you to observe, to teach them to do all things that I have taught you to observe. And this is Torah. This is Tahurah. This is still what we are to do. This is still our calling card. This is still our mission, to teach the nations Tahurah, to be set-apart examples to them in set-apartness, to be living Tahurahs to them, to be living lights to them, so that through his set-apart people, through his set-apart nation, Yahuwah will reconcile the rest of mankind back to himself. This is our purpose. This is our purpose. And so that now that you know who you are, now your next mission is to allow Yahuwah to prepare you to operate in your ordained purpose that was spoken over you before the foundation of the earth and before the Shamayim was stretched forth. This is your purpose. This is our purpose. And this is what we should be aligning ourselves with. Being Kohen to the nations. Kohen to the nations. Secondly, let me say this. The reason for this video, the reason that this video is being made is that there is many disagreements in the house of Yaakov. There are many disagreements within the house of Yaakov. There are very few things that we are one on, that we are in agreement on. And that should not be. That should not be. Yahush's prayer before he ascended was that we be one. As he and the Father are one, that we be one. But we are so all over the map. We are all over the map with our teachings, that we agree on very few things. We agree on very few things. And I submit to you, Zion, that this is a season that Yah is separating us. He's separating the wheat from the chaff. He's separating the sheep from the goats. This is a season of separation. He is separating the rebels from amongst us, and this will continue in the wilderness. And so it's important that we align ourselves with the truth, and it's important that we be in consensus with respect to the truth. With that being said, I heard a Yahshua-like teacher, one with a very large following, say that it's okay. It's okay for men to spill their seed. It's okay for a man to spill his seed. I heard him say it. I heard him say it. And when I disagreed with him, one of his followers accused me of being in a cult. He accused me of being in a cult because I disagree that it's okay for a man to spill his seed. So I guess the consensus was that because I support a house full of kids, 10, 12, 20 kids, because if you don't spill your seed, if you don't have some type of contraception, then that's what's going to ensue, even though I never said that. He put words, he placed that label on me by accusing me of being in some type of cult, in which I didn't defend myself. There was no need. His false accusation about me is on his own head. Yahuwah defends his children. Yahuwah defends his children. So I was accused of being in a cult because his teacher said it was okay to spill seed. And him, obviously, not wanting a house full of kids, I agreed with him. And then he was very aggressive towards me because I disagreed with it. Two, I need you to understand this. And two, that was one. I'm not addressing heathen in this video. I'm not addressing heathen. Heathen are not my concern. They are Yahuwah's. I'm addressing Yasharal and Yasharal alone. The house of Yasharal needs to be cleaned up. There needs to be a precedent set in the house of Yasharal in this season. And we need to separate the rebels from amongst us. We need to focus in this season on being set apart and being clean. And those who do not want to live set apart and do not want to be clean, we need to separate them from amongst us. And so I pray that this video serves as that purpose, as a linchpin to start the process of cleaning ourselves, of ridding ourselves of the rebels and ridding ourselves of those who do not desire to live clean and set apart lives. And three, and likewise, I'm speaking here in connection with the marriage bed with respect to the spilling of seed. I'm speaking in connection with the marriage bed and not the bed of whoredom. Again, they're not my concern. They're Yah's concern. My concern is the house of Yasharal. My concern is with the house of Yasharal. And is it okay for men within the house of Yasharal to spill their seed? Is it okay for the men of Yasharal to spill their seed? Along those lines, most, when they think of this subject, from a scriptural perspective, they turn to the book of Barashif. They turn to the book of Barashif, commonly called Genesis, where we read the account of Onan, the son of Yehudah. We read the account of Onan. Now, many will take this account and say that, well, Onan was slain, and we're going to read the scripture, that Onan was slain because he refused to raise up seed for his brother. Because he refused to raise up seed for his brother. Is that the case? Was it that simple that Yah slay him because he refused to raise up seed for his brother? I know that that's a Torah, that's an instruction, that if our brother dies and he did not leave seed, a male seed, then his brother is to go into his wife and his former wife, and then she is to become his wife, and then he in turn is to raise up seed for his deceased brother so that his brother's name is not diminished within the house of Yasharal. I know that this is an instruction, but is this the instruction that caused, is disobedience to this instruction the cause for his death? Is disobeying this instruction the cause for his death? Let's take a look at scripture. Let's take a look at scripture and let's answer this question once and for all with respect to the spilling of seed. Is it okay for men within the house of Yasharal to spill seed? Again, this text here is the one that's most often looked at with respect to the spilling of seed. And again, most attribute Onan's death to the fact that he refused to raise up seed for his deceased brother. Let's take a look at that. Beginning at verse 1, it reads, "And at that time it came to be that Yehudah left his brothers and turned aside to a man, an Adulamite, whose name was Hirah. And Yehudah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her and went into her, so that she conceived and bore a son. And he called his name or Ad. And she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Kazib when she bore him, and Yahudah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. It says here, but Yahudah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah took his life. Now, it says nothing further about It just says that was evil. He was evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah took his life. And that's the end of this. And this is the end of this account in Barashit. Reading on, and Yahudah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother. And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. And it came to be, when he went into his brother's wife, that he spilled on the ground. He spilled his seed, lest he should give an offspring to his brother. But what he did displeased Yahuwah, so he took his life too. So again, did Yahuwah take his life because he refused to raise up seed for his brother? Is that the reason that Yahuwah took his life? Is this the act that was evil in Yahuwah's eyes? Moreover, what happened to Why did Yahuwah take his life? Why did Yahuwah take his life? Why did he take his life? Was Onan's life taken because he refused to raise up seed for his brother? Or was it taken because he spilled his seed? Again, it doesn't give any more context to that here. It doesn't give any more context to that here with respect to why he was taken, and why Onan was taken. Why Onan was taken. But let me add this to the conversation. If a man refused to raise up seed for his brother, it is written in Dabarim, the 25th chapter, verse 5 through 10, when brothers dwell together and one of them has died and has no son, the widow of the dead man shall not become a stranger's outside. Her husband's brother does go into her, means he has sex with her, and then she becomes his wife, and shall take her as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And it shall be that the firstborn son which she bears does rise up for the name of the dead brother, so that his name is not blotted out of Yasharal. But, hear me, if the man does not desire to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate to the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to raise up a name to his brother in Yasharal. He does not agree to perform the duty of my husband's brother. The elders of his city shall then call him and speak to him, and he shall stand and say, I have no desire to take her. Then his brother's wife shall come to him in the presence of the elders, and remove his sandal from his foot, and shall spit in his face, and answer and say, thus it is done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. And in Yasharal his name shall be called, the house of him who had his sandal removed. So we see here that the penalty for refusing to raise up seed for your brother is to have your sandal removed and to have the dead brother's wife spit in the face of the offender. It is not death. It is not death. This penalty for refusing to raise up seed for your brother's wife, for your dead brother, is not death. It is to have your sandal removed and to have your dead brother's wife spit in your face. Spit in your face. So then, understanding this, then if the penalty for not wanting to raise up seed for your dead brother is not death, then why was Onan killed? Why was he killed? Again, while it's true that Onan didn't honor his father in refusing to raise up seed for his brother, because Yahudah did in fact command him to go into his that brother's wife, it is true that he did not honor his father by refusing to raise up seed for his brother. But as shown, that penalty doesn't require death. He was slain, hear me, because one, he transgressed the first eternal commandment given by Yahuwah, and that is to be fruitful and multiply. And that is to be fruitful and multiply. In Barashif of Genesis, the first chapter, verse 26 through 28, we read, "And Elohim said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the Shamayim, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over all the creeping creatures that creep on the ground. And Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim he created him. Male and female he created them. And Elohim baruched them. And Elohim said to them, be fruitful." This is the first commandment, the very first one. "Be fruitful and increase, and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the Shamayim, and over all the creeping creatures on the earth." He disobeyed the very first commandment, which is to be fruitful and to multiply. Does it end there? Is that indeed the primary reason that he was slain, that he was taken out? I submit to you that yes, it is in conjunction with that. It is in conjunction with disobeying the very first commandment, which is to be fruitful and multiply. But there is even more to it than that. There's even more to it than that. But ultimately, he disobeyed the first commandment, the very first commandment uttered from the mouth of Yah, and that is to be fruitful and multiply. And that is to be fruitful and multiply. And by spilling his seed, he disobeyed this very first commandment, to be fruitful and multiply. We find the witness of this in Yashar, a Jasser, the 2nd chapter, the 19th through the 22nd verse, and it reads, "For in those days the sons of men began to trespass against Elohim, and to transgress the commandments which he had commanded to Adam, to be fruitful and multiply in the earth. And some of the sons of men caused their wives to drink a draught that would render them barren." Again, this is about men, but whoever, you sisters that are listening, birth control pills, this is talking about you. Any type of contraception, this is talking about you. This is addressing you. Nevertheless, in verse 20, it reads, "And some of the sons of men caused their wives to drink a draught that would render them barren, in order that they might retain their figures, and whereby their beautiful appearance might not fade. And when the sons of men caused some of their wives to drink, Zillah drank with them. And the childbearing women appeared abominable in the sight of their husbands as widows, while their husbands lived. For the barren ones only they were attached." For the barren ones only they were attached. And so it reads here as a witness that during the time, there was a time in the earth when the fallen ones, when the fallen messengers taught mankind the smashing of the womb, and taught them to make a drought such as to render their women barren, such as to cause them not to bear children, so that they would retain their figures. And it reads here that in verse 19, "For in those days the sons of men began to trespass against Elohim, and to transgress the commandments which he had commanded to Adam, to be fruitful and multiply in the earth." So we see with this witness that Onan too transgressed that commandment to be fruitful and multiply. And ultimately, this is why he was taken out, because, hear me, the wages of sin is death. The wages of sin is death. Sin leads to death. Transgressing YAHUAH'S Torah, transgressing his commandments, leads to death. He spilled his seed, because he didn't want to raise up seed for his dead brother. And we've read that the penalty for not wanting to raise up seed for your deceased brother is to have your sandal removed and to have the dead brother's wife spit in your face. So that's not why he was taken out. He was taken out because he transgressed the very first command, which is to be fruitful and multiply, by spilling his seed. By spilling his seed. And as we're going to read here momentarily further, that spilling the seed and transgressing that very first commandment are intertwined. They are synonymous. They are forever intertwined. Spilling the seed is to not be fruitful and multiply. Being fruitful and multiplying is not spilling your seed. It's not spilling your seed, but doing with it what it was intended to do. But doing with it what it was intended to do. In another witness, we read in Jasher, or Yashar, the 45th chapter, the 23rd through the 26th verse, and it reads, in those days, Yahudah, and this is where we find out what happened to This is where we find out what happened to what is not known in the book of Barashith. This is why I recommend that everyone read apocryphal scriptures, because apocryphal scriptures, the operative word is scriptures, apocryphal scriptures fill in the blanks of what the traditional scriptures do not tell us, of what the traditional scriptures do not tell us. And along those lines, in the book of Jasher, the 45th chapter, the 23rd to the 26th verse, we read, and in those days Yahudah went to the house of Shem and took Tamar, the daughter of Elam, the son of Shem, for a woman for his firstborn And came to his woman Tamar, and she became his woman. And when he came into her, hear me, he outwardly destroyed his seed. He spilled his seed. This is which Barashith doesn't tell us about. It just tells us that he was found to be evil in Yah's eyes, and he killed him. And this is why he killed him. And came to his woman, and she became his woman. And when he came to her, he outwardly destroyed his seed, and his work was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah slew him. He was slain for spilling his seed. He was slain for spilling his seed. And it was after the death of Yahush's firstborn, that Yahudah said unto Onan, go to your brother's woman and marry her as the next of kin, and raise up seed to your brother. And Onan took Tamar for a woman, and he came to her, and Onan also did like unto the work of his brother, and his work was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, and he slew him also. And he slew him also. Spilling your seed is wickedness in the eyes of Yah. It is wickedness in the eyes of Yah. And it caused Onan and to be snatched up. It caused them to be cut off from the earth by the very fact, because they both spilled their seeds, because of the fact that they spilled their seed. It had nothing to do with him refusing to raise up seed, with him being Onan, refusing to raise up seed for his deceased brother. He was killed, he was slain like his brother because they spilled their seed. And this was wickedness, evil in the eyes of Yah. Wickedness, evil in the eyes of Yah. So the answer is no, no. Yasharal, you cannot spill your seed. You cannot spill your seed. If you don't want children, then perhaps it's best for you not to marry. It's best for you not to marry. Yahuwah won't judge you for choosing not to marry. But if you marry, and if you use contraception as the women above used drole, a drole was made, the fallen ones taught them to make a drole to cause them to be barren. If you taken any type of contraception and birth control pills, woman, if you are spilling your seed, man, this is evil in the eyes of Yah. This is evil in the eyes of Yah. Be careful. Be careful. He slew Onan and for spilling their seed. And now that you know, whoever is under the sound of my voice, and now that you know that this is evil, that this is wickedness in the eyes of Yah, if you choose to continue doing this, beware. Beware. It is evil, it is wickedness in the eyes of Yah for man to spill his seed. You are transgressing the very first commandment that Yahuwah gave to mankind, to Adam, to mankind. And that is to be fruitful and to multiply. And by spilling your seed like Onan and like it is wickedness and it is evil, and you are subject to be cut off and taken out of this earth. You need to thank him and praise him for his favor on your life to this point. But now you are without excuse. Everyone under the sound of my voice, you are without excuse. If you continue to do this wicked thing, if you continue to spill your seed, man, if you continue to take this drought, woman, then it is wickedness and it is evil in the eyes of Yah. It is wickedness and evil in the eyes of Yah. Be clean, Yasharal. Be clean. Put away the uncleanness amongst us. Be clean, Yasharal. Be clean. This is uncleanness. It is unclean to spill your seed. It is unclean to drink that drought, woman. Sin is uncleanness. Uncleanness is synonymous with sin. Indeed, sin and uncleanness is the same thing. Put away the uncleanness amongst us, Yasharal, and set yourselves apart to the Most High Yah. To the Most High Yah. Set yourselves apart to the Most High Yah. Not only is that uncleanness to spill your seed, the emission, the spilling of the seed in general is uncleanness. It's uncleanness because it is a condition of our fallen state. Our fallen state is a condition of sin. It is a condition of sin. So the very act of emission in itself is unclean. That very act of spilling the seed, or whether inside of a woman or outside, is unclean, is an unclean act. Because sex in itself and the spilling of seed in and of itself is a condition of our fallen state. And our fallen state is a condition of sin. I'm still in point, I'm still in context, as it reads in Leviticus, the 15th chapter, the 18th verse. And when a woman lies with a man, and there is an emission of semen, they both shall bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. And be unclean until evening. It is an unclean act because it is synonymous with our fallen state, and our fallen state is synonymous with sin. In Dabarim of Deuteronomy, the 23rd chapter, the 10th through the 11th verse, it reads, when there is any man among you who is not clean, hear me, because of an emission in the night, and we used to call them wet dreams, because of an emission in the night, then he shall go outside the camp. Then he shall go outside the camp. Let him not come into the midst of the camp. And it shall be at the approach of evening, at the end of the day, that he bathes with water, and when the sun sets, let him come into the midst of the camp. Let him come into the midst of the camp. Now we understand that this instruction was to teach us to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean. It was to teach us the difference between the set apart and the profane. It was to teach us to separate ourselves from that which is unclean, from that which is sin. From that which is sin. Sin and our uncleanness, hear me, separates us from Yahuwah. Hence, when a man with a nightly emission when a man who had a nightly emission, he was to go outside the camp. He had to be separate for a whole day. And at the end of the day, he was to bathe himself with water. Then he was to come back into camp, because uncleanness, sin, separates us from Yahuwah. Separates us from Yahuwah. And this very thing is a condition of our fallen state. Our fallen state is a condition of sin. It's a condition of sin. Again, thus our forefathers had to go outside the camp whenever semen was emitted, because it is a condition of our fallen state. Our fallen state is a condition of sin. Sex, emission of semen, is a condition, again, as well, of our fallen state. Our fallen state, again, is a condition of sin. Sin separates us from Yahuwah. Uncleanness separates us from Yahuwah. Uncleanness separates us from Yahuwah. We understand now that the veil has now been torn because of the offering of the body of Yahushua HaMashiach. When we are born from above, we are reborn in the inner man back to our former states before falling. And now there is no more separation between us and Yahuwah, provided that we walk not according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. Sex and the emission of semen no longer causes separation. Hear me. It no longer causes separation. It no longer causes separation as long as it is done, within the confines of marriage, as it is written. Marriage is honorable above all, and its bed is undefiled. But whoremongers and adulterers, Yahuwah will judge. Yahuwah will judge. This doesn't mean that we can practice unclean acts in the marriage bed. This doesn't mean that we can live like the heathen and practice unclean acts in the marriage bed. This means that we do not defile the marriage bed by committing whoredom and adultery. It does not mean that we can practice whatever act we want in the undefiled, set-apart bed of Yahuwah. We are set-apart people. We are a set-apart people, and we cannot practice any kind of uncleanness, not even in the marriage bed. Not even in the marriage bed. Nevertheless, as shown, the spilling of semen in and of itself is unclean. But as long as it is being spilled within the confines of the marriage bed, then it is not considered unclean. But if you are just spilling your seed on the ground or wherever you spill it on, whether within the confines of marriage, again, the spilling of seed is unclean anyway. But if you're doing it within the marriage bed, then Yah looks over it. It's okay, as long as it's done within the confines of marriage. But if done outside of the confines of marriage, or if you are spilling your seed in general, period, it is unclean. It is unclean, as shown in Scripture, that the spilling of seed in and of itself is already unclean. It's already unclean, and you are unclean by doing it. But if it is done within the confines of marriage, and you are being fruitful and you are multiplying, then it is no longer considered unclean, and it is no longer something that separates us from Yah. But spilling the seed and masturbation will get us cut off. It is uncleanness. It is uncleanness. Be clean, Yasharal. Be clean. Be clean. The spilling of the seed outside of the marriage bed, the spilling of the seed, period, is unclean. And like and Onan, it will get you cut off. It will get you cut off. Again, I said I'm not talking to heathen, but there are those in Yasharal who masturbate. Both men and women, there are those of you who masturbate. This is unclean. It is an unclean act that if you don't get delivered from, it will get you cut off. Like and Onan, it will get you cut off. Seek deliverance from this demon, from this devil today. Seek deliverance from him. Call out to the Most High Yah. Call out to him on this Yom and seek freedom, seek deliverance from this devil, because it will get you cut off. It will get you cut off. No, Yasharal, you cannot spill your seed. No, Yasharal, you cannot take conception, birth control. You cannot drink the draw. No, this is uncleanness. This is transgression of Torah, of the very first commandment, to be fruitful and multiply, and it will get you cut off. It will get you cut off. Now that you've heard, you have no excuse. You have no excuse. Be clean, Yasharal. Be clean. They need us. They want us to defile ourselves. They, as the demonic army of Hashatan, they want us to defile ourselves. Why? Because if we are defiled, if we are unclean, then unclean spirits can either dwell in us or have dominion and or authority over us. Unclean spirits need uncleanness to dwell in. And if they can cause you to be defiled by spilling your seed, you are defiling yourself. This is unclean. They have a right to you. They have a right to dwell in you or oppress you. They have a legal right to you. Flee from all uncleanness. Flee from all uncleanness. Wherefore come out from among them. Be ye separate. Touch not the unclean thing, and Yahuwah will receive us. Be clean, Yasharal. Be clean from every unclean act. Be clean. Masturbation, spilling the seed is unclean. You cannot spill your seed. If you don't want children, don't get married. I don't know how else to say it. If you don't want children, then don't get married. I pray that this has been edifying. I pray that it has opened your eyes. And I pray that you are obedient to this instruction. Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of Yasharal, and I myself shall barak them. Amen.